Hello and welcome to the day ahead. It is Thursday, October the 30th. I'm Andrew Gagan. Well, the local market is set to fall at the opening with ASX futures down around 1/3%. The US Federal Reserve has delivered a highly anticipated interest rate cut.
Conditions in the labour market appear to be gradually cooling and inflation remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals and in light of the balance of risks to employment and inflation, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a 1/4 percentage point.
However, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has said another rate cut in December is not a foregone conclusion, particularly given the lack of data because of the US government shutdown.
And at a time when we have tension between our two goals, we have strong views across the committee. And as I mentioned, there were strongly differing views today. And the takeaway from that is that we haven't made a decision about December. And, we're going to be looking at the data that we have, how that affects the outlook and the balance of risk.
Well, Jerome Powell says the board expects the impact of tariffs on prices to be short-lived, but warns that inflation could be persistent.
In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside. A challenging situation. There is no risk-free path for policy as we navigate this tension between our employment and inflation goals.
And further adjustment to policy will see the Fed end its quantitative tightening on December the 1st. Meanwhile, the Bank of Canada has cut its policy rate by 25 basis points to 2.25% in response to the effects of US tariffs persisting, signalling that settings are at the right place as long as the economy grows in line with forecasts. Well, the 2-year Treasury yield rose to 3.6% following the FOMC decision, while the 10-year yield rose to 4.07%. Markets are priced in a 65% chance the Fed funds rate will be cut by 25 basis points at the next meeting in December, with an additional 3 more cuts in the easing cycle. The US dollar index is up 0.6% on the day. The Aussie dollar has eased to 65.7 US cents. Well, markets perceive the Fed move as a hawkish cut. That led to a choppy trade on Wall Street, with the major indices mixed. The S&P 500 boosted by the mega cap tech stocks ahead of earnings results after the bell, but actually ended up flat while the Nasdaq rose. Results from Microsoft saw it spend nearly $35 billion on AI in its fiscal first quarter, surpassing market expectations and overshadowing blockbuster growth in its cloud computing business. Shares of the company dipping 3% in extended trading, with the capex number troubling investors concerned about an AI bubble. Meta recorded a nearly $16 billion one-time charge in the third quarter related to President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, and said its capex next year would be notably larger than in 2025, shares of the company falling around 6% after the bell. And Google parent Alphabet beat Wall Street estimates for third quarter revenue, as both its core advertising business and cloud computing unit showed steady growth, with the company reporting total revenue of more than $102 billion for the quarter. Nvidia became the first company to reach $5 trillion in market value, powered by a rally that has cemented its place at the centre of the global AI boom. Elsewhere, Starbucks posted a bigger than expected rise in quarterly global same-store sales, helped by a recovery in demand in international markets. And Boeing pushed the first delivery of its long-delayed 777X jet program to 2027 and took a bigger than expected $5 billion charge in a further setback for the aerospace company. Well, oil prices have risen after data showed US crude and fuel inventories drew down more than expected last week. Brent crude futures up almost 1% at $65 a barrel. Copper rose close to 0.5%. Iron ore was 1% higher at $107 a tonne. And gold paired gains as markets considered the outlook from the Federal Reserve. Spot gold down 0.5% at around $3,930 an ounce. And Bitcoin has fallen below $112,000. Locally today, we get the international trade price indices for the September quarter on the corporate calendar. Quarterly results expected from Coles, IGO, Lynas and Mineral Resources. Companies due to hold AGMs include Challenger, Charter Hall Retail REIT, EQT Holdings, Helios, JB Hi-Fi, James Hardie Kelsian Group and PWR Holdings, while Alcoa and Suncorp are set to hold an investor day. That is your day ahead. We'll see you again tomorrow.